What's up, AfterBuzzers? We are here, the Terror Infamy After Show. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Life in an internment camps, Yuko strikes again, and Chester leaves. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, AfterBuzzers? The Terror After Show. Oh my God, and it's a very interesting and a detailed episode tonight. My God, welcome guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a special guest joining us, but first, let me introduce you to our awesome panel. You know him from Bring the Funny and Pennyworth, Ben Schnell.
Hey, what's up everybody? Thanks for having me again, and I'm still shocked about this episode,
yes.
to be honest. There's a lot of not expecting stuff happening.
Yeah.
And you also know her from Pennyworth and Spookies, Anais Lucia.
Hello everyone. I love this show. I feel like one thing they seem to do, it's like I feel like they're able to get so much in it, but in an hour, but it feels
It's beautiful writing.
It's awesome.
Beautiful writing. And our special guest tonight, you've seen him tonight as Ken. You also seen him on Jean-Claude Van Johnson, Too Old to Die Young, Lethal Weapon, SWAT, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Please welcome Chris, Naoki, Lee.
Hey everybody.
What's up?
Nice to have you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me.
course.
Very
Good to
excited
see you
be
here.
Very excited
Thanks for
to be
coming.
Here. Yep, very excited.
That lovely introduction is very well.
Appreciate
It's
it.
deserved, very well deserved.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot about what's going on with you and your history and past and all that stuff.
Cool.
Moving forward. But first, I'd like to get, Ben, your overall thoughts about this episode.
Honestly, the ending was crazy shocking to me, right? I mean, that's creepy. That was the creepiest moment for me so far, to be honest. I mean, of course, we saw people dying, which is always a bad thing, but when she gets to Yoki, and basically she's holding her hands on her belly,
Yeah.
I was like, damn. But I was like,
Let's say it's Yuko, not Yuki.
You go.
Oh, you go. Yeah, sorry.
Wait, hold on, you said you gave up.
I had to
Sorry.
correct it.
I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, because you see, I'm still gone. So I was like,
Oh my gosh.
No, but honestly, that was a crazy moment to me.
Yes.
That's creepy. You know, you don't always have to go crazy with people and beat them up or basically kill them or something. But this is a creepy moment.
Of course.
And I can't really wait what's happening next in the next episode. I mean, how is she getting out of the house now? You know.
Hey, we'll
Right,
see.
right,
Anais, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I was not really surprised that
No.
it was her. Like we had a little technical difficulties towards the end, and I was like, I need to see her face because I want to know if I'm right. Because I was
Right.
like, I think that's Yuko, and it was. And it's scary. I'm scared now for Luz because I feel like, yeah, you know, you can go and like off someone real quick and, you know, get it done, but I feel like it's with like Yuko's plan is like more like a slow burn, like torture, like a slow torture in a way, like mentally, and I don't know what the plan is. So I think that's kind of worse because you're just like, you know, like making it just like a longer process.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Chris, what do you think about and watching yourself on this episode?
Yeah.
What are your overall thoughts about like the episode? You've seen it before, right?
I have.
Yeah.
I know, but I always love. Just it's such a great work of art. I think it's everything that you guys are saying. I 100% agree with. I still get like moments where I'm just like, whoa, you know, and I get a little jumped up by it. So it's great to watch kind of other people kind of feel that as well. But you know, from the aesthetic of it, how it looks, the kind of that horror of Japanese horror, all those little elements that are in there have been just it's been just a pleasure, a treat to watch it all come alive.
And it feels like you're kind of the checker a little bit in that camp. You're checking out on those girls.
You and
know?
A little bit, maybe. You know, I caught my eye on Amy. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. You know, can't help it.
I like your smiling at me. Look, oh, hey.
I'm like, hey, you know, hey, Terminal Island, huh? It's a good spot.
He's just trying to make the most out of the situation.
Right, exactly.
Like, you know,
I think you have to.
Yeah.
Right? And how rude am I? I didn't introduce myself. I'm your boy, Danny Royce.
There we go.
Can't forget about me, right?
There we go.
Sorry.
It's okay. You guys didn't care.
we're just too excited. Okay.
We love you, man.
So what's going on?
So I want to talk about life in the internment camps. There, you know, everyone's starting to just. You mentioned something while we were watching that a lot of the Japanese Americans in these camps just went about their day. They didn't really protest. They didn't really do anything. Like, could you touch a little bit about that and how it showed in this episode?
Yeah, I think I mean, great point. Yeah, just even because the actual name of the episode is called Gaman, which is, in a loose translation, it's just to persevere, patience, things like that. And it is one of the true characteristics of just Japanese people, their culture, and it very much carried over into Japanese American culture as well. And so, at that time, and we were doing a lot of heavy research just on the camps themselves and how the people kind of just went about their day. And generally the older, the old school, the more traditional Japanese folks, they really kind of fell in line. Like they didn't want to make a mess of themselves. They didn't want to sort of stand out in a negative kind of way. They wanted to show, that they were still very much true Americans for, though they immigrated from Japan, that they wanted to prove themselves to be true Americans.
Right.
And so to that point, and kind of this episode shows a lot of it too, of that feeling of, you don't want to fall in line necessarily given the circumstances that they had to be in, but they also understood that, well, like, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to, just cry and just moan about it, or kind of make the best out of the situation? And I think we're starting to kind of see a little bit of that, but again, it's not easy. My character very much clearly so is not a fan of it.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I definitely noticed that with like some of the characters playing chess and gardening, playing baseball. It's like, let's kind of try to like,
You just got to make the best of what the
just like,
situation.
I guess just trying to like take it day by day, and
And I can't help but also state that we also had, the Japanese Americans at that time, they had to build the camps themselves. It wasn't fully finished yet when they got there.
Oh, wow.
And they themselves, as you kind of saw the introduction of my character, we were actually still building the fence. So it's kind of that kind of double-edged sword too, to sort of see that though they made the best out of it, they still made the best out of some very bad situations.
Right. It's like the last episode, Asako, when they got to the room, she's like, "There's a lot of work to be done."
Yes.
So they
True testament.
definitely.
That is such a Japanese thing
Yeah.
to say too. Yeah. It's like,
of
don't
work.
look at it pessimistic like that. Nope, we got a lot of work to do.
Exactly.
Right.
So
I mean, talking about you personally, I mean, you mentioned that already, right? We're going to talk a little bit more about you, half Japanese, half Chinese.
Yes.
So talk about this scenario right now. When you talk to your family about that, is there any kind of connection to this scenario back in the day?
I mean, they, my mother and my father, they're both first generation. So they both came from, my mother from Osaka, my father from Hong Kong, respectively, and they met in Oregon.
Wow.
And essentially, they very much brought their own kind of cultures to the States, and we were very much raised along that line. But I think it's more broad to me. I think it's more about just having immigrant parents and just coming to a place here where we very I grew up on very much American values, and so I think to that there's always going to be a disconnect, and I think a lot of people that's not just Japanese Japanese American can kind of relate to that, and that's sort of what we're very much tapping into, in the sense that we're not very much different from any color of skin at this point. There very much are families out there that have kind of emigrated and come over here, and there's that sort of that disconnect that kind of begins to happen between generations.
Right.
So
I mean, I'm the German in the U.S. I can
There
tell
you go.
you about that.
we saw that in like the first episode with Henry and Chester, and then again in this one too,
Right.
when
For
sure.
Henry gets upset with Chester leaving. So definitely
which
see a
we'll
lot of
definitely
that.
get into. We see Yuko start to affect. The livelihood of the people in these camps, as far as gardening and the vegetables. Like when the worm came out of the pepper.
Yep.
Like that was I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Everything just like rotting.
And that's part of in Japanese culture too. That's like omen.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean? That's like, there's just
the
bad
evil
omens.
spirits around and all that. So, and then we saw the swallows came back. So, like the swallows in a
sparrow's
nest. Yes, from last episode, they made themselves back. So, what do you think, Anais, is this connection of the swallows? Do you have any?
I don't know much about birds, so
There's something about this nest.
I would have to look up a little bit more information on them to make like an educated guess.
Right.
So.
I mean, it sounds maybe a little philosophical what I'm saying right now, but when I saw when they were basically working on those vegetables, it was like a metaphor for me a little bit, because at the beginning from the outside, they said, "Oh my God, it's growing right now. We have something to eat or something like that." But then she's taking a bite, and out of a sudden it was something bad in it.
Exactly.
So it basically shows me, even from the outside something is beautiful or someone is maybe treating you good in the first place, that doesn't always mean that they have good intention inside of them. You know what I mean? That's how I felt about it.
That's a good way to look at it.
Also, you go with the shape-shifting and all that.
Yeah,
like
pretty much.
That's a good,
Because I still, don't get me wrong, I love Chester, but I still have a feeling that something happened in the past to him that we all don't know about yet.
There's a lot of past.
You know what I mean?
That's coming
I know,
back to
but
haunt people.
you remember the last episodes that there's always something that they're talking about the past that he did something, but we don't even know what it is until now. So
I'm interested.
I can only nod my head in these situations.
Right. So, Chris, basically,
so what's gonna happen next episode? No, it's gonna.
So we're gonna hold predictions to the end. We're gonna tell all
Fair
the
enough.
predictions.
Fair enough. Just cut my face off. Just black it out. Yeah.
And then we also see Asako-san missing Henry a lot. We have this dream, which I also want to
that
talk.
shot.
Oh my gosh,
It's beautiful,
I love
right?
it.
Shout out to fun fact on that one. Shout out to Shannon Goss. She's one of the executive producers on the show, and she was the one that was kind of in charge of that episode.
Nice.
And she just so wanted to have this beautiful shot of like exactly how it looked. And I watched it. It's such a beautiful moment. It's such a simple, sweet kind of like that dream sequence feeling, just to kind of take away from it all. But it's beautiful. I love that.
Yes,
And in
I
general,
love
and
that
we
scene.
talked about that in general already. I think the lighting, the coloring, the whole scenarios, the production design is amazing.
Yeah.
So can you just
No,
talk a little bit about that?
No, fantastic. No, I mean, production design, Jonathan, he came from season 1 into season 2 as well. So just the aesthetic of it, the authenticity of it, and they took a lot of time in studying, and they went to, I know, the Japanese American Museum in downtown LA to do a lot of research on internment camps. So they really did their due diligence. John Conroy, who was our DP, him and Barry, like these guys made the show look how it looks. So they are the reasons why any of us look nearly half as good as why we do. So shout out to them. But and again, we have a great assortment of directors, from Joseph to Lily to Mira, these very eclectic groups, especially diverse voices and diverse faces as well. So it was great to kind of have that collaboration all under the umbrella of Alex Wu, who was our showrunner overall.
Right.
So,
we talked
And
about
one other thing I really like about the show is that they actually have them speak Japanese at times, because sometimes that bothers me about certain movies. Like if it takes place in Germany, for example, like the Germans are all speaking English all the time. Like, really? No.
It's like, no.
Right.
I can read subtitles.
Read the subtitles.
It's okay.
Give it to us.
we do in Berlin, okay.
Yeah, so.
But it's true, though. It's true. But it's changing now. I mean, we talked about it, right? I mean, we talked about the show The Dark. I don't know if you watched that. It's a German show, but they dubbed it into English. So we basically even have
It's amazing, though. It's amazingly done.
production.
Like, everything's
The
spot
dubbing
on.
itself, or the
dubbing is spot on. Yeah, just
Yeah,
like
the dubbing is
the
spot on.
grunts, everything. Like, it's just the passion's in there. And that's, like, really good voiceover.
And thanks also to all these streaming services. I just have to point that out for a second, because it makes it more global now. So that means even Americans watching non-American shows now. Because it's possible to do that.
It
now,
is. So let's do it.
So, yeah, exactly. So I love that.
all the content.
Right. Before we get into our next topic, Ben, you have a little special message for you all.
Yeah, I always have a special message, because we're talking about the terror, right? Which is not always happy, but I just want to talk about something very happy, because I want to say thank you to all of you guys for making us the ESPN talk. The ESPN of TV talk, that's what I wanted to say. Because we want to grow as a family, right? We do that for many, many years already, and we like doing what we do, and we have crazy good guests. Look at him. Look how good he looks.
I'm liking this shirt. That's my favorite.
He's way nicer than his character.
And we want to continue that, right? We want to continue talking about the shows that you also love so much. And please go on YouTube. If you're on YouTube already, give us some thumbs up. 5 stars, right? Because we want to grow. We love you. You love us too. We know that. Keep us going on.
Yes, I definitely agree. And so you mentioned that you were a fan of the show, even last season.
Yes.
So can you just touch on kind of like what this meant for you to be on this season, being a fan of it?
Yeah, and I didn't know really much about the show until last year, when sort of the process began, the audition process and the producer sessions and things began. That's when I kind of start to pay more attention to it, and just I remember I went on Apple or something and purchased the season just to watch it, and I binged it. Like
Yeah.
I binged that baby. I think within like 4 or 5 days I was done. And it was such a great show just because not only the acting is spectacular
Yes.
with Jared Harris and the great ensemble that they had, but I think it was just that mixture of nonfiction with fiction, the historical
Yes.
context with
Love
fiction,
that part.
and I think we're kind of living in a time right now where at least there is that genre that we love right now of historical context-based dramas or sort of mixed genres as well. So I think within that, it's great to see that this show has gotten as much steam as it has, and it's gotten as much kind of publicity and marketing as it has, because it is such an important story to tell.
It is.
And I think even the first season, I looked up so much. I'm sure you did
About
too.
the innuendo.
As soon as it finished, I'm just like HMS Terror, just Googling it, Googling everything.
Look at all the photos.
Looking at
everything.
all the photos. So I can only hope that it does something similar for audiences
yeah.
for season 2 as well. That's what we hope for.
It's enlightening. That's
Yeah.
great. So Yuko strikes again. Man.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Multiple times.
Yeah,
like,
for your son.
wow.
So it was interesting, like that whole a soldier walking out. I was like, what is going on? So she possesses the soldier. This is one of my conclusion. To bring him, Furia-san out, right? Because the soldier was the only person that could lead him out. So that was very smart on her behalf. And then when he's out there, she rips his tongue out.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was crazy.
But I like-
This whole dialogue though led me to. I mean, we'll save it for predictions, but it's obviously something they did to her. Okay, in the past, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
whole thing.
What's that?
Oh, please.
What's that saying about something about a woman scorned or something
That's
like that?
Hell hath no fury like a woman
it's something
scorned.
like that. I'm like,
It is.
Oh.
yeah.
Hell hath no fury.
Yeah, exactly. There you
Interesting.
go.
What you just so that means what you just feel like is that she was probably I just say it, that she was probably raped.
I
the
came
interesting
to
that
some type of
Well,
sexual
I feel,
assault.
That's interesting
I feel
that you
the
said
fact
that.
that she took out the
Exquisite?
tongue.
That's what I'm
it's
saying. You
More
had
of a
choice.
emotional thing. Like it's like you said you loved me, or you said I was exquisite.
It's
It's like,
exquisite, right? It's something.
you mess with her heart, maybe. So it's like that way you can never say these things to another woman again.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Like
That's
she's
what I
very
think.
strategic when it comes to everything
Because I
she
feel
does.
if it was rape, she would have gone for down there.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
don't
more
know.
like emotional. It's like
I don't
she
know.
doesn't
All I
tongue.
know is you did something.
I feel like I had a different perspective. I felt that she was actually a whore in this whorehouse.
Oh, like a brothel.
Yeah, pretty much. And he basically cheated on his wife. So he got to this whorehouse
you-
and he
you created this whole-
they basically did
Nice.
Wow.
as I always did that
Okay.
for people, you don't understand what that means.
Yeah.
Right?
I wonder.
So let's say that.
Not
Let's
the
say
first
that
or the second time.
prediction.
Let me
The
like,
fourth
let
time
me
they
be
got
the
it.
black
Yeah,
bar
It's a
right
very
here.
interesting thing to do.
Right.
People, you got
Black
We'll,
bar,
we'll
black
save the
bar.
rest for predictions, but I just thought that scene was great. Obviously, I mean, I thought I was watching
Oh my
Walking
God.
Dead. I mean, I like stuff like that.
That's
true. Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, it just got me thinking a lot. So then the body is discovered by a kid, right? And so this story gets back to the camp, and people are whether believing it's Bakemono or Yore, and they just don't know, or if it's just the Americans. What do you think about this whole contrast thing, Anais?
About contrast
About people's beliefs about whether it's actual spirits or whether it's Americans.
Well, I mean, I think that's something. I think that's also like a generational thing, maybe. I don't know, or a culture.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's generational or cultural thing, because I think, I've seen it in like other cultures too, like
Right.
more like the older generation like
Beliefs.
has their little myths and things like that they pass down to the kids to maybe like scare them or something like
American
that.
soldiers, yeah.
But I mean, there's people my age who believe in that stuff. I'm
Right.
not really into that, just because like I'm more of like I need to see it in order to believe it. Like if I actually saw a spirit in front of me, I'd be like, okay, I believe it. But like since I haven't, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know, I'm open to it, but.
So you're definitely not part of the group that wants to raid Area 51.
All right. I was like, let's do
You're
it.
not in that
I
group.
I just
believe that.
wonder like why she's appearing more to like she's appearing to the kid now. She's
She's being shown more,
loose
right?
more. I'm
Yes,
like,
right.
are you like, what's your plan? Because at first it was just mostly just men.
Yeah.
So I thought that was what she was gonna keep doing, but now she's appearing to more people. So I'm like,
But I wanted to ask you, Chris, about that, because they mentioned that a couple of times, and I've never heard of that before. They said Yurei and Bakemono.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Just to get a feeling.
The test of my Japanese skills is no display. But Yude, Bakemono, they're kind of in the same realm. It's basically like Yude is like a spirit. Bakemono is kind of more. It's more of a negative connotation of a ghost.
Okay.
Like Obake is kind of just like a ghost.
Okay.
But like Bakemono kind of has. There's a little bit more of a negative kind of shade behind it. But it's basically within that realm. That's as George Takei has very much brought up about about Kaidan. It's very much those folklore stories that. Old Japanese teaches young Japanese, and if you do certain things, karma is a very big thing for them. Omen's a big deal. You'll see as the episodes kind of go on, there are certain things that very much relate to Japanese culture and Japanese omens that will trickle down into the story.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely got a lot of that like in the first 2 episodes about like karma.
Yeah,
Like, this is all karma.
Yeah. And I had to, of course I had to do my research. I'm like, what are these spirits?
But I even believe in karma, to be honest.
Yeah, of course.
I do believe in karma too as well.
Yeah.
Sure. I think you don't have to be religious, or you don't have to be in any religion to believe in karma.
Right.
And the simple question is, how far do you let that manifest ultimately for people? That's what it comes down to.
Exactly.
I was for the longest time when I was a kid, I was very much afraid of the dark. But it's like, what are you afraid of the dark if there's nothing there? But it's what we create in our heads is the most frightening thing.
For sure.
So I think spirits is just as much as what you make of it too.
For sure.
Totally. Yeah.
And so so she's here with the baby, right? So we brought it up a little bit earlier. And the last part, she's rubbing the baby and just so excited to be there. I want to save all that for a prediction because that's just a whole bunch in itself. But so Chester's leaving, right? He's joining the army. Okay, so I want to talk first about the mother and just the feelings that's going with, and him leaving and then taking her hair and wanting to do a proper burial. Can you touch on the relationship between Chester and his mother?
And I was like, it is a very beautiful relationship just because it's strained, It's strained just in the sense of their generation, of how they don't understand each other from that, from a mother to a son. But Chester's obviously being pulled in so many different directions that he feels that this is the move that he has to do to keep his family safe.
Right.
Thanks.
So
that's what I felt too.
Like that's what it ultimately like his decision to kind of leave. It's like otherwise this might stay around and do more harm. So I think he's choosing that over anything else. And I think even between Chester and Asako, it's really even Chester and Henry, and just the father-son relationship, because that's especially in the 1940s Japanese Americans, and I think even just men in general, like at that time, and how you were supposed to kind of be. Alex and the writers like Tony and all of them, they did such a great job of just trying to find those nuances. And Shingo, who plays Henry, is phenomenal, and like Asako by Naoko, like they're incredible. So they all bring the same nuances that just as much as Derek needs to bring every day. So.
Yeah, Henry and Chester's relationship is very interesting because he told him to enlist in one moment, and then after he saw kind of what happened, experienced
behind the curtain,
changed his opinions on that. And so this whole thing of what Chester, I thought was very interesting because Chester was pretty much telling Henry to be a man when he was on the bed, and we had that discussion in the first episode. So it was just interesting how they came back around. Then what do you think when he said that?
I mean, I feel like that he's just trying to help his dad, to be honest, right? I think he's just trying to tell him things that he probably doesn't really mean in the way that we understand it. He's just trying to get him out of the bed and just trying to take care of the family, right? And I totally agree with what you said when I watched it. And he was always talking about, I want to have some extra money for some real wage, that can basically take care of the family. I think Chester already knows that this spirit or ghost is after him. He knows that already, for sure. So he does the only thing that you have to do as a man who's kind of almost becoming a dad very soon. So you have to leave in order to save your own wife or girlfriend and your baby, which is kind of hard.
Which is really sad, but it just shows you the kind of person that Chester is.
True, But also thinking, okay, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. In Lu's position, Lu's sacrificed a lot to go with him to this camp, and now all of a sudden you're leaving her. Like that, for me, that's kind of like, I can see how she was very shocked and like a slap in her face at first. Because like I did this and then now you're leaving.
I definitely saw that too, and I felt for both of them because they both are making hard decisions, but I just want to tell Luz, like, if only you knew what what Chester knows, you would understand. I would hope.
Right.
But I don't know. Hopefully she'll understand like later on that he was doing it, you know, for both of them.
Both of them. For the family. The three of them, right?
Yes. I want to be like, girl, trust me. He loves you, okay?
And I always felt in this relationship, I think Chester was always more the optimist. And she was always more like a pessimist, more like always thinking negatively about stuff that could happen, that might happen. So I think when he's leaving, she's already imagining, oh my God, he's going to go to war and he's going to die, and because he has to fight and combat with people and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah, both her and his mom were worried, but he's like, I'm a translator.
I know.
Right.
I'll be pretty good, I guess. But
which is also interesting
risk, you know?
because I think what Chester is, he changes two different environments at the same time, because I think because of his leaving, he's also changing the relationship between the mom and Luz.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Because at the beginning, I had the feeling that the mom was not completely against Luz, but she had kind of a problem that she's probably maybe because I'm not sure. I'm just putting it out there that maybe she's because not Japanese.
But
she's like from a different whatever nationality or something.
I said last episode that she would come around. Like, how can you not?
You
it's your grandchild.
It's your
How can you be a
And
hater?
family's a huge thing.
So I know it's gonna happen.
Of course,
So.
and that's. So
No.
yeah, he changed that. I feel like
Right.
You know, so.
And so he's going to be a translator, right? And we met. God, I'm blanking on his name. Last episode, we met the trader, right? And how he felt. I can't remember his name. Sorry. And so, what are your thoughts, Chris, about like? Do you see Chester as being somewhat of a traitor?
In what context? Like, a traitor to what? Like his country?
To his own people, to the Japanese American.
Do I
like selling out to the U.S. or being a traitor, all that.
I'm trying to think. What can I say?
Don't want to get him in trouble.
Yeah. I was like, what? I think ultimately, like that's something that I would just say you kind of have to watch it, but to sort of say, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to.
I'm trying to get them, guys.
I can feel it. I might be just trying to deflect in a way that just is making you think. Like, wait a second. I think there's part. I'll put it this way: his character goes through a lot of different things that will continue to challenge him and press him and make tough choices as any main character will have to go through anything. So to that I will say he'll go through the fire.
I mean,
go through the fire.
For example, think about the poem scene.
Yeah.
When he's basically in the office and they ask him, hey, can you translate that for us? I felt like he knew exactly what it was already from the very beginning. He knew that was not just a poem.
Right.
But he was trying to work around it, still getting the job, but not telling them what it's really about, because he wanted to still save his own community, obviously, his own people. But when he realized that the officer was like, oh my God, he doesn't know what he's doing, he basically was thinking, okay, I need to leave.
Right.
I need to save them. In order to do that, I just tell them what they want to hear. And I tell them what I actually already know about this poem.
Right.
That's how I felt. Are you with me on that? I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe
I
is it too deep for you guys?
It's an interesting one.
I don't know. I can't, because I'm always so close to things too.
Yeah.
And it's always so fascinating, especially as an actor in the show too. Whenever you're sort of watching it, it's still a somewhat hard disconnect in a way, just because we know the people, we know the script, we know everything.
Of course.
So to that point, I'm like, I think that scene is actually, I mean, I think it's very much, it could be up for debate at the end of the day.
It definitely could.
How it kind of came out. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Yeah.
Definitely could. So does anyone have any last thoughts about the episode?
I can wait for the next one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Same here. All right. So I want to just dive in and talk a little bit about Chris and your and where you're at and what you got going on. Okay, our guest, and then I want to save predictions for the end.
Cool.
Okay, and you can chime in too if you want.
Your character. Can you talk a little bit about your character first of all? I felt like. He's not the nicest guy, or like he has like a bone to pick with Chester. I feel I don't know if he like had heard about
Playboy.
Chester or something.
I think he's a nice guy. He's just a little rough around the edge.
Oh, okay.
He's a nice guy.
At least from what what I can state is, he's kind of like from San Francisco. He sort of comes from a sort of like an affluent family. That's kind of what was already been stated. That's already out there. Beyond that, I probably can't say anything else without getting a big slap on the wrist, which is probably like me getting blacklisted. So I'm not gonna say anything. But no, it's. The character, I'm in the next three of the next 4 episodes, and I'm very kind of excited to just kind of go along this ride with you guys, just because there's so many different things happening, from the horror element with what's going on with Chester and the spirit, and then all the things that's also happening in the Japanese American internment camps. And that it was a privilege to kind of work within that realm, just because, for instance, George Takei, who was interned himself from the ages of 5 to 8 or 5 to 9, he was an incredible source material, reference material, just to talk to and get a feeling for what it was all like. So that we did the very best that we can in terms of honoring the time of what we were actually filming.
Right.
So what was one of your favorite moments on set with George, such an icon?
He would, I hope George doesn't hurt me for me saying this. We, in our studio days, instead of, we would shoot, and instead of walking all the way back to the green room, which is kind of where like our, all the set chairs and stuff are, he would just be like, George's like, I don't want to walk that far. So there would be like little just beds set up right next to the set, they have to put in, and he would just like knock out for like 15, 20 minutes.
I want to take a nap.
It was great. I mean, we all took photos with him. He didn't care, but he was lounging, having a great time. But he was always such a fun energy to be around. He's such a generous human being. And so, again, just talking to him about the things that happened, again, without spoiling anything, but he with his experience, it was so invaluable to just all the characters.
Yeah, I remember reading about how when he, because he was so young, when he first got there, he thought it was fun because he's like, I got to be with the horses and stuff like that.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know at that age. You just have no idea. It's just
no
you don't
idea what's
process. Yeah, you just don't process. Since it's again to the parents themselves, they just have to make sure that they don't feel like there's something wrong. And like we're talking about old traditional Japanese, that feeling of staying in line and not rocking that boat.
Right.
So it's all part of it.
As the Germans do too. We know that, right? It's the same thing. We just talked about it, right? I have a friend from the UK. He's Japanese too, and he told me that the German and the Japanese mentality is very similar in certain ways. So it's very interesting. But I have also a question. I always have to ask that as an actor myself. So how was the audition process?
Yes.
And did you guys know each other a little bit from this Japanese community, kind of?
Okay. Well, great question, man. So I read for another part, and it didn't kind of happen. It didn't go through. But then essentially when I got a call from casting to my reps to me, essentially saying that, hey, there's a role that came out and studio approved you. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that necessarily meant at that time, because it didn't mean that you booked the part or anything. It just means that they like you, because they obviously have seen me in just through the other audition process. And just about a week or so later, they call and say, hey, the showrunner and team, they want to offer you a part. And I didn't audition for it. I didn't even
An offer's always great.
I didn't know what the part actually kind of entailed, except very small broad strokes. But I read the pilot. I already knew enough about the show. I knew who was involved. I was like, I didn't even skip a beat. I said, I'll definitely jump on board for this, because I love the first season too, and it's such a great subject matter. I love the mix of horror and drama. So it was a no-brainer for me. But I was very, very grateful for all that.
So that means your agent sent in your picture, your headshot with some show reels of what you have, and they picked it from that, or how?
So generally, I read and I went through a different producer session.
Okay.
But basically, quite a few times for something else, and just it didn't kind of go through, didn't pan out. And about a month or 2 months later, when the other breakdowns were kind of coming in, essentially, that's my managers kind of reached out. Casting said, hey, hold on a second, let us call you back. They were talking to the studio. They called back saying, we approved you. Week later, you want to jump on?
Awesome.
And I said, where do I sign?
That's the unpredictable thing about Hollywood.
Exactly.
That's what I'm always saying. You never know.
Never know. Just Gaman.
Never know.
Persevere.
There you go. Call back.
It's all karma, right?
But real quick, I know Ben and I are huge fans. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, shoot.
All right,
Talk
so
about
just
him.
give us a little blurb, your favorite things that happened.
Look, okay. Here's the funnest fact of it all is I think I was 6-7 years old. Maybe I had to have been a little bit older, because I can't imagine my parents being okay with me watching this. But I remember the earliest when I could have watched Bloodsport.
Yes.
The happiest time I ever saw Bloodsport. And it could have
Bloodsport.
been 7. It could have been 7 or 8. But I literally told my parents at that moment. I said, guys, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
I want to act.
Nice.
And little did I know that literally 20 some years later that I got this, I went in for this audition for this recurring co-star, and I didn't even think, I was like, I don't know if I'm really right for this part, but I'll do it. And lo and behold, I got it.
Nice.
And got to work with JC, and he super generous, such a gracious guy. And the best part of it was I didn't want to say anything to him when we were working together. Like, he was literally my childhood idol. Like, he was the guy. You know.
Oh man.
And so I didn't say anything. I wanted to keep it professional. But then we rapped. We were at the rap party. I had 1 or 2 many whiskeys in me. So I was like,
1 or 2.
JC, let's have a heart to heart, man. I gotta talk to you about something.
Yes.
And
There you go.
put his hand on my shoulder. I was like, hey man, I gotta let you know, like, I told him the story. Like, the first time I saw Bloodsport, you were the reason why I'm here. You were literally the reason why. And I was like, and I didn't want to tell you during when we were filming because I wanted to be professional.
Right.
And he just put his hand on my shoulder and said, Chris, I'm so glad you told me that. And it was like this very generous moment.
Yeah.
And then
Love
we just kept
it.
drinking. And then I just kept drinking.
I love it.
We had a good time.
And you dance too, like
I do on a good day.
On a good day.
And when
You can watch his dancing on his YouTube channel. Check it
Yeah, I
out.
gotta stretch quite a bit nowadays. It's starting to get there for me. But
What's your favorite style?
I mean, it's still hip hop, but freestyle is kind of my jam. I'm all about it. I play good music, pop song, I'm with it. So exactly. But yeah, I think nowadays, more focus has been popped in more with acting and producing and those things. But dancing will always be, you pop a good tune
And you
on.
have to see his episode on Legends of Tomorrow. It's amazing, an amazing fight scene as a head
That's
samurai.
fun. Yeah, that was
Head
fun.
samurai.
Yeah. Kudos to that show. I'm so happy for that show. It's doing so well. Like, I'm very happy. I know Brandon is no longer a part of it, I heard, but he's gonna be being Superman for the crossover. So I'm like, good job.
There you go.
So this is a man of many talents right here.
There
So
you go.
you do different kind of martial arts then? Or
I
what
do.
you
I've done. I mean, the Shotokan is the style that I've learned for 8 some years of my life. But aside from that, I've done fight choreography.
Right.
Nice.
Also stunt choreography, stuff with props as well, sword fighting, things like that.
Nice.
Awesome.
It'd be cool if you
Awesome.
did some kind of like movie where you're like dancing amazingly, and then you all of a sudden can kick people's butt at the same time.
Nice.
Like, just show off all your talents in
Capoeira
one.
type
a little
thing.
like Michael Jackson Thriller type.
Yeah.
Or a beat or Smooth Criminal. So it is.
Somebody
Yeah.
write that script, combine all of it. It's like
But it's amazing.
that dance movie with Channing Tatum, but like with martial arts or something.
Right.
But I'm so inspired right now. I have to say
I
that
know.
for a second because the thing is, my goal is still to meet Jean-Claude Van Damme.
And you
Yeah,
will soon.
I mean, honestly,
But right now,
I was like, Jean.
You're literally
my
now-
prediction for you is you will soon. Well, we have to hit in predictions. So, man,
so
go
okay.
ahead
we
and
have
give
to
us your
wrap it up.
prediction.
First prediction
for
is
the next one.
I'm gonna meet Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's the first one. I promise you that Jean-Claude we're gonna meet. The second part is that I still feel that Chester is coming back sooner or later. Even if he doesn't want to, he has to come back because something is happening
yeah.
between Luce and this crazy woman. You know what I'm talking about? So, yeah.
Don't turn the camera on me, guys.
Right, Chris?
Just nodding. Great.
Well, yeah, we're gonna see more of Yuko, and I just want to say, like, I don't know if Chester's plan's gonna work because he's like, oh, I'm gonna leave to make things better for everyone else, but it's like now she's like there with Luz. Like, you
Right.
left and you thought that was gonna help, and now she's so
Right.
close to your child's mother, and it's like, I think your plan didn't really work. So yeah, just more of Yuko, hopefully more of Ken. We're gonna find out more what's going on with him,
Right.
Right,
We're
Chris?
gonna find out. We're gonna find out a lot more about Ken and Amy, and then. But I believe Chester's gonna return, and I believe that Yuko is actually after Chester's baby.
Oh, shit.
That's my thing.
So not after him, after
No.
his baby.
Yes.
From the very beginning.
Or else she would have followed him, right?
Or what if
Why
she
did she stay
somehow
behind?
impregnated Luz?
Oh,
like
God.
some kind of
All
magic
right.
voodoo.
We on some type of. All right.
That's my
Well, thank you.
prediction.
We're gonna wrap things up here, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna close out then and tell everyone where to find you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining in. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Benjamin Schnau, SCHNAU, the same name on Facebook. And I also do Pennyworth on Sunday, 8 p.m. And I also do Bring the Funny NBC on Tuesday, and I also do
He's everywhere.
the German dark show from Germany in German for you guys. AfterBuzz TV is gonna make it happen. Boom.
Hi, I'm find me on Instagram at More Than You Think 7.
You can find me on Instagram at Chris Naoki Lee. I'm excited for everybody to catch this terror Monday nights, 9 p.m. AMC. Be there, Hulu Live or Amazon Prime, as well on demand.
Yes, follow him, and you can follow me everywhere at I am Daniel Race. Also tune in for 13 Reasons Why After Show starting tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week, same place, same time.
Jean-Claude, I love you.
Keven Undergaro and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world. We are the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.